There we go. I don't know why that was turned off. Whatever, some people mess with my stuff. Back to paper making. The snow began to melt, and sunny days came in sequence, brighter than once in a blue moon. It was still cold, but my family permitted me to go to the Gilberta Company, so I went there with Lutz to get our pay. We set out with bags we could use to carry the money our winter handiwork had earned. There was no snow in the middle of the main street, but there were mountains of half-melted snow in the alleys reaching up to my neck. They kept the feeling of winter alive. Everyone looked excited for spring, and the people walking along the street all had a skip in their step. There were more carriages and wagons passing along the main street than I can remember seeing for a long time. More people were going to the Gilberta Company, too, and despite us aiming for the relatively non-busy afternoon, they were still swamped when we arrived. Lutz and I began discussing whether we should come back later when we saw Mark walking our way. An employee had recognized us and called for him. "Hi, long time no see, Mr. Mark." "Indeed, blessed by the melting of the snow. May the goddess of spring's boundless magnanimity grace you both." Mark clenched his right hand into a fist in front of his chest and placed it against his left hand. Fingers pressed together and stretched out. I had no idea what he was doing and could only blink rapidly in confusion. What? I merely said the traditional spring greeting. Mark looked confused about why we were confused, which told me that his greeting was commonplace in these parts. "I've never heard it before. Have you, Lutz?" "Nope. First time I'm hearing it, too." "Is it maybe a greeting only merchants say?" "I have never thought much about it, given that it's so commonplace in my family, but given that my job leads me to primarily associating with merchants, that could be the case." Melting snow means more trade, so it is blessed. The greeting in general is one to bless each other with the good graces of the goddess of spring. Said Mark, teaching us how merchants greet each other, or at least how they greeted each other specifically the first time they meet after spring. I interpreted it as the equivalent of saying, "Happy New Year." I pressed my right fist against my left palm in front of my chest as Mark had done, and practiced the greeting. "Blessed be the melting of the snow." That's correct. And then, "May the goddess of spring's boundless magnanimity grace you." I murmured the greeting to myself several times, but I was confident I could forget it by tomorrow. Once again, I wished I had a notepad. I had my stone slate in my bag, but it wouldn't work as a notepad. "The master is in a business meeting right now. May I ask you to stand what brings you here today?" asked Mark, to which I replied by counting everything I had to talk about on my fingers. First is the money for our winter handiwork. Second, I want to confirm if the large sucetta has been finished, since I want to start making paper again soon. Third, I need to talk to Mr. Benno about my apprenticeship, but I guess I can't if he's in the meeting. Understood. Let us begin with the handiwork payment. His meeting will end before long. Mark guided us to a table within the store. Lutz and I sat next to each other, and Mark sat in front. I present the last of the hairpins. Please assess them, sir," stumbled Lutz as he held out the bag of hairpins, not used to being so polite. Mark took them out and counted. "There are 24 here, including those you delivered. You brought us a total of 186 hairpins. Is that correct?" Perfect. We had the exact same number written on our slates. Each hairpin was worth 5 middle coppers. From that, Lutz and I put our 1 copper share directly into our guild savings. We then put the rest into a separate bag we had brought with us to make it easier to distribute. Lutz's 3 brothers had been making an equal amount of them to prevent fighting, so we owed each of them 6 large coppers and 2 middle coppers. Very simple. On the other hand, Mom had made 83 hairpins, Thule 66, and me 37, which made things kind of annoying. Mom had earned 1 small silver, 6 large coppers, and 6 middle coppers. Thule had earned 1 small silver, 3 large coppers, and 2 middle coppers. I had earned 7 large coppers and 4 middle coppers. With this many hairpins, our stock should last until next winter. They are selling fairly well. Our customers enjoy browsing the different colors and selecting their favorites. I smiled, imagining a mother and daughter browsing hairpins together. Really? That's great. I made a hairpin, too, for my own baptism. What kind is it? That's a secret for now. I giggled and Mark raised an eyebrow. Oh, in that case, I will look forward to its grand reveal. Moving on, then. You wish to resume making paper? Yes, we can't be sure until Let's goes to the forest and checks out the river, but now that it's spring, I want to start making paper again. Benno would only give us free financial support until the beginning of this summer. The sooner we started, the better. Understood. I will speak to the craftsman. You ordered 2 of those cicada the size of contract papers, yes? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Just as we finished the first 2 topics, Benno's business meeting ended and several merchants left his room. I'll report this to the master. Please wait just a moment. Mark entered the room, then popped back out to gesture us inside. It was the first time I was seeing Benno this spring, so I put my right fist against my left palm to immediately say the spring greeting I had just learned. Hi, Mr. Benno. Nice to see you. Oh, God. This is so freaking weird. I'm sorry. Blessed by the melting of the... Dang it. Blessed be the melting of the snow. May the goddess of spring's boundless magnanimity... Dang it. How does it go again? Let's sing that I couldn't remember. Something I had learned 5 minutes ago without a notepad. Shook his head and stepped forward. Blessed be the melting of the snow. May the goddess of spring's boundless magnanimity grace you. Right, that. Oh, God. Blessed be the melting of the snow. May the goddess of spring's boundless magnanimity grace you both. Thanks to Let's, I remembered the greeting and corrected myself. Benno returned the greeting while clearly holding back laughter. Yeah, blessed... do I have to really repeat this every single time? Blessed be the melting of the snow. May the goddess of spring's boundless magnanimity grace you. Anyway, you sure messed that up, huh? Do better next time, said Benno with a grin as he tapped his table. Let's and I sat down on the other side and began our discussion. Mr. Mark just taught me that today. I never heard it before, or so at least compliment me for getting most of it right on my first try. Yeah, in that case, good job, Lutz. Anyway, what's all this about your apprenticeship? Benno complimented only Lutz, who had given the entire grading correctly. Wow. Harsh. I puffed my cheeks out, pouting, and got to the main top point of why I was here. I've decided not to become your apprentice after my baptism. Huh? Hold up. Where's this coming from? Because I didn't compliment you just now. You didn't say it right, but I appreciate that you tried your best, you know. Benno rubbed his temple and tossed out a lukewarm compliment for my greeting. No, that's not it. The greeting has nothing to do with this. Then why? You know how weak I am, right? Obviously. You're so weak I can hardly believe it. Benno's immediate reply pierced my chest. You were worried about whether or not I will be able to work, weren't you? I think that if a new apprentice takes a lot of days off work and is given all the easiest jobs, the other employees will get upset and everything will start collapsing. Is that all? Why else are you saying this? Benno glared at me with his dark red eyes, and I thought back to all the important points Otto had talked to me about. Also, isn't it likely that the profit from my products will lead to me earning a lot more than a veteran that's been working here for decades? Money can break apart human relationships faster than anything else. Who told you that? Don't try and say you thought of that yourself. Oh dear, he's gonna get mad at Otto about this. Benno narrowed his eyes and peered at me, so I replied with a big nod. I had a very narrow perspective due to my entire life up until this point being built around reading books. Even now, I was mainly thinking about my own health. I hadn't thought about human relationships and all that abstract stuff until Otto pointed it out to me. Mr. Otto told me all this. Is that right? Otto, huh? Wait, is it just me or did his voice just drop an octave? And is that oh no, he's mad at Otto. He's gonna get it. Otto's gonna get it. I had a violent look in his eyes. I must be imagining things. I tilted my head in confusion at Benno's sudden shift into predator mode and asked the biggest question on my mind. Also, you know that I'm sick with the devouring, right? I don't think you should hire an employee that could die before the year is up. It was very likely that the resources he put into training me would all be wasted. A merchant wouldn't be willing to do that. Yeah, because even with him paying you for your products, that might not be enough to get the magic tools you need. Benno rubbed his temples hard and stared at me with eyes that had sharpened drastically. So, what do you do instead of joining my store? Essentially what I've already been doing. I'll do paperwork and stuff at home, make new products with Let's on my days off, sometimes go to the gate to help. Basically the same thing that I've already been doing. I talked with my family over the winter, and we decided that the less work we put on my body, the better. Alright, I'll take you off the future apprentice list. The strength drained from Benno's eyes and shoulders. He rubbed his temples and murmured, what am I going to do about this? Well, deep in thought, I called out to him after he started whispering to himself. Mr. Benno, is there any work you could give me that I can do at home? Benno's eyes immediately flashed with a sharp light. His expression looked calm, but his lips were curved into a grin of a carnivore. Uh-oh. Your handwriting's pretty nice. You can find good work as a stand-in writer for others, so come to the store with Lutz every once in a while, alright? Why do I feel like a predator has just captured me? Because he has! He's gonna have you writing, girl! I decided not to think about it since he was offering me a job and instead asked another question. In that case, what will happen to my guild card? I was planning on selling things through Lutz, but my card is assigned to your store right now, isn't it? Will it need to be switched over to a merchant stand? My plan had been to register as an apprentice at the Gilberta company once my baptism was over, so I had no idea what would happen to it if I didn't do that. A temporary registration wouldn't fly after the baptism ceremony, I imagined. But I didn't belong to any store, and I couldn't do trade without being registered. I don't know how many products you intend to think up, but how about we turn your storage building into the mine workshop and make your card into a four-woman's card? If you sign a contract making it a branch of the Gilberta company, not much will change from right now. 4 women? Wow, that sounds cool. If doing that will keep things the same, it's what I want. Thank you. I clapped my hands with joy, and Benno nodded with a happy grin. Then I continued. Okay, with that settled, I'll tell you what I told Mark. I want to start making paper again after checking the river. We'll keep making paper until our baptism, but after that, Lutz has his apprentice work, and I'll stop being an apprentice at all. So I think it'll be best if you left the paper making to another workshop. Does that work? If I left it to another workshop, you're supposed to be the one to pick it, right? Pick it, remember? But I mean, whatever works for you. The magic contract Lutz and I had signed was meant to ensure a stable, safe work with Benno's store. Wood paper making would be a new business, and I can imagine that Benno wanted to select the workshop and workers carefully to maximize its profit. Meanwhile, given that I wasn't getting a cut of the overall profits, I honestly didn't care who made it, as long as paper ended up mass-produced and common throughout the world. Well, I don't know anything about workshops, and I don't know anybody who wants to make paper. Though, since a step involves dunking wood in a river, you'll maybe want a workshop near the river. Near the river, huh? That won't be easy. How are you two managing it? Let's shrug. We carry our tools to the river and do our work there, but I believe that carrying the tools there each day would be not good. Mass production will involve larger tools, which will make carrying them close to impossible. But thinking about that is your job and the workshop people's job. It sure is. Benno nodded, signaling that he would deal with choosing the workshop, buying tools, and so on himself. Please make these decisions before the baptism ceremony. We'll come teach you how to make paper once the baptism's over. Me? Lutz's eyes widened and his mouth flapped. I smiled and nodded. Well, there's a lot of steps I can't do myself. You teaching him will be for the best. We'll make so much paper in the spring that you'll end up memorizing the process whether you want to or not. You're really abandoning all responsibility here? Huh? Laughed Benno in amusement. I looked away. I knew that I was burdening others by abandoning responsibility, but now that I had mostly ironed out the paper-making process and found a way to mass-produce paper, I wanted to advance to the next step. Just paper wasn't enough to make a book. I needed to make paper for myself over the winter and start getting to work on printing. I left Benno's store with my time-limited dream held closely in my heart. Mark was a fast worker, and our new Stucetta would be in our storage building by tomorrow. Hearing that, Lutz went to the thawed-out forest to investigate the river for us. How was it, Lutz? Warm enough to make paper? The river's bigger thanks to all the melted snow, but unless there's some heavy rain, I don't think the bark will get washed away. Concluded Lutz, which meant it was time to make paper again. The next day, Lutz left in the early morning to get the storage building key, then we headed there together. We walked along the alleys, and I thought about what we needed to do today, as still chilly air pushed against my coat. We would go to the storage building first, and check to see if the black bark and tromba wood we left there was safe. Once that was done, we could get to work turning it into white bark while simultaneously using the saved white bark from the Bookworm wood to start making actual paper. While considering my health, it will probably be better for us to wait for the water to warm a bit. Yeah, but we need to start saving money, so the sooner we start the better. Benno would only fund our paper making until our baptism. We wanted to earn as much money as possible before then. I wonder if the tromba black bark is doing okay, I murmured. It's been drying since we left it here. It should be all dried out by now. I'm worried that it grew mold since there's no sun here. I don't think mold really grows on tromba wood. Let's shrug, but we had completely skipped the sun-drying process, so I couldn't help but feel worried. It had definitely dried out given how we left it here for the entirety of winter, but who knew if it would be dried the way I wanted it. We reached the storage building and unlocked it. The door creaked as it opened. A ton of what looked like ivy was hanging off the shelves of the dim storage building. Add that on, the dust everywhere, and it looked pretty horrible in here. Is this really going to be okay? Alright, I gotta say I'm a little worried now too. He poked the black bark with a finger, and it was immediately completely crusty, showing that it had finished drying. But since it was black, it was hard to tell by color whether or not mold was growing on it. Let's go ahead and take it to the forest and put it in the river. What else are we bringing? Asked Lutz while dusting off the carrying basket he'd left there. You should take the pot and ashes, I think. We don't need something as big as a tub, but a bucket would be nice. And we'll be in trouble if we can't find any firewood in the forest, so maybe we should bring some of that too. I'll carry the black bark and our saved Bookworm white bark plus my chopsticks. I don't know about the bucket, but if you say so. I prepared the dried up tromba black bark and Bookworm white bark, grabbed the chopsticks Lutz had made for me to stir the pot, and put them into my basket alongside several rags. We put our stuff on our backs and hurried to the meeting place where the other kids were. We arrived at the forest with everyone and scattered to do our own thing. Lutz and I went to the riverbed. Once there, Lutz prepared the pot next to the river. He placed the pot on top of the harvest stones and began drawing water with his bucket. I get it now. We can get water from the river without going inside of it like this. Good thinking, mine. To get water into the pot directly, one had to enter the river, but it seemed Lutz hadn't thought of a workaround for that. He put the water into the pot and ignited the firewood we had brought with us. As the water boiled, we put the black bark into the water to clean it as much as possible. Lutz glared at the river flowing with melted snow and murmured about how cold it looked. He had to position the rocks into a circle to keep the black bark from washing away, but only half of the rocks from autumn were still there, which meant he needed to enter the river and get to work placing the rocks. Ah, so cold! Lutz yelled miserably as he walked into the ice-cold river. I believe in you, Lutz! I would definitely get a fever if I went in there, and if I got a fever, my family wouldn't allow me to go outside for a bit. All I could do here was support him from the sidelines. I walked around the riverbed and collected firewood for Lutz until eventually he called out to me from the river, Mine, get the black bark! Okay. Once he got the black bark into place, Lutz dashed out of the river and squatted in front of the burning hearth. He held out his bright red hands and feet to the fire and rubbed them together. I scooped up a bucket of warm water from the pot and held it out to Lutz. Put this in your hands and feet. If you don't rub it in enough, you might get frostbite. Now this is warm. Feels great. Lutz added a sigh of relief after getting the warm water in his hands and feet. The water cooled almost immediately, but that had been enough to heat his body up. We put the ashes and white bark into the now boiling water. Then once it was finished, we put it into the river to wash away the ashes. Thanks to Lutz's tearful yet noble efforts within the cold river, we safely finished the day's work. Vested interests. The next day came, and it was time to peel the black bark and turn it into white bark, so we brought a pan, a tub, and a bucket with us. We peeled the bark with knives while occasionally holding our hands up to the fire and dipping them into hot water to warm up. You know, I really don't want to do this outside of summer. It's so cold my fingers are all tingly, I said. Yeah, going into the river is a real killer. We complained to one another while continuing our work and getting white bark from all the tromba wood. I didn't see any moldy spots on the white bark, which made me sigh in relief. Looks like it didn't get moldy. Whew! Didn't I tell you that? Maybe the Bookworm would, but the tromba wood's definitely fine. Trombas sure are dangerous plants, aren't they? Once the bark was peeled, it was time to gather in the forest. There were some herbs that could only be foraged in this season, and I picked them up with Lutz while he taught me what to look for. Along the way, I noticed that Lutz was actively avoiding red fruits about the size of an adult's thumb. Maybe they were poisonous? I pointed at one, making sure not to touch it, and asked Lutz, Hey Lutz, why don't you pick up any of these red fruits? Are they poisonous? Yeah, you don't need to bother with tau fruit. They're basically just water inside. Can't eat them, and the water dries up eventually if you take them home. Nothing you can do with them right now. The phrase right now implied they could be useful later. So I gave Lutz an inquisitive look. So I explained, once summer comes, they end up about as big as your fist. They'll explode if you throw them at someone, so we can have fun tossing them at each other. Ah, I concluded that they were nature's water balloons. They would just dry out at home, and they wouldn't get bigger if not left on the ground. Weird. Kids and adults end up having big wars in town. I mean, you remember the Star Festival, right? I lived in this world for over a year, but I didn't remember any festival like that. Lutz, I've never heard of the Star Festival. Was there always been a festival in the summer? Last year you were close to dying when the festival came around. I went to your place so we could go together, and your mom told me your fever wasn't going down at all. I went to get the bamboo after the festival was over. Said Let's, establishing that I had been on the verge of death back then. That had been the first time I fully understood that the devouring heat was actually trying to swallow me up. I was unconscious for days in a row and ended up in bed for a while afterwards, so going to a festival was the last thing on my mind. Tuli must have wanted to go and play too. Did I make her stay home to look after me? It was possible that I had stolen away nice childhood memories from Tuli. The thought of that made my shoulders droop, but Lutz just shrugged and shook his head. Nope, Effa was looking after you and let Tuli go to the Star Festival. She and Ralph fought to see who could gather the most towels in the forest. Oh, okay, that's a relief. Hope you can go too this year, mine. I promised Lutz I would watch my health this year so I could go to the festival, and before long we had finished our gathering. But, well, promise or not, I didn't know if my parents would let me go to a festival that involved getting pelted with water. Starting from the next day, we had to work in front of the storage building. The water was so cold that we had to repeatedly dip our hands in hot water while we worked, but nonetheless, we swished around Bollworm pulp in the contract paper-sized Tuketa. While the pulp dried over several days, we started making paper from the trauma bark. Looks like the Bollworm paper is dry now. Good thing it was so sunny today. We're gonna have to dry the trauma wood for a full day tomorrow, yeah? Confirmed Let's as we split the 26 completed pages of Bollworm paper. Let's look at his 13 sheets of paper and furrowed his brows. Wait, why are we splitting them? Shouldn't we just split the money? Well, I want some paper for myself. I couldn't keep paper made from wood Benno bought for us. But since we got this wood ourselves, it should be okay. If I were to buy the paper back after selling it to Benno, I would need the cost of the 30% handling fee, if not more. It would be better not to sell him the paper in the first place. So you're not selling yours? I'll sell half of mine. I want to collect paper and make a book. Now that we had the process ironed out and we were both fairly used to it, there were fewer failures in each batch of paper. That was problematic for my bookmaking. I honestly cared more about paper than money, especially since Mom had started telling me a ton of stories I wanted to write down. Once our work was done, we went to Benno's store to both sell the paper and return the key. Oh, all done? Benno took the Bollworm paper from the both of us and counted the sheets. 13 from Lutz, 6 from me. He frowned at the clear difference. Not many from you. Mine, why's that? I wanted the paper for myself. There was no problem with that since we used wood we got ourselves, right? Yeah, I don't mind that for wood you got yourselves, but what do you even want that paper for? Asked Benno, looking somewhat on guard. I want to make a book. You need paper to make a book. A book? Why would you want one of those? They don't sell. I wouldn't sell it. I just want to read it by myself. Let's look between us. He and I were both confused. Benno couldn't understand why I would use valuable paper to make something that wouldn't be sold. I just wanted to read a book regardless of profit. There was no way we could understand each other. I don't know what's going on in that head of yours, but I get the feeling it'd just be a waste of time to think about it. Here's your pay. Paper this big has a market value of 1 large silver each. My handling fee is a 30% cut. How much do you earn? Lutz still wasn't great at percentages. He hurriedly glanced at me and I gave an immediate answer. 7 small silvers. Huh? 7 small silvers? What? Isn't that a little too much? Lutz hadn't expected that at all, and his jaw just dropped at the value of paper. Calm down, Lutz. It may seem like we're earning too much, but we're only going to be earning more money from paper from this season. Compared to how much Benno's going to make as he sells paper for decades and decades after this, we're basically earning peanuts. Don't worry about it. Seriously? Don't worry about it? I was trying to calm Lutz down, but he just blinked rapidly at me in stunned disbelief. You sold 13 sheets of paper today, Lutz, so you get 9 large silvers and a small silver. I sold 6, so I get 4 large silvers and 2 small silvers. I mean, no matter how I think about it, 9 large silvers isn't peanuts. Oh, should we sell them for less then? I saw how frightened Lutz was and suggested that we lower the price, but Benno shook his head with a frown. You can't lower the price. That'd cause unnecessary conflict with the vested interests. We have to keep the price up. Once your wood paper's solidly in the market, I'll think about how to handle the price. But if you're scared of earning that much money, I can boost my handling fee. Sound good? Benno said to Lutz with a grin. We don't have the right to change the paper's price, so I'll leave all that to you, but I won't let you increase the handling fee, in which case Lutz can take your money if you don't. I can take your money if you don't want it. I'm not giving it to either of you. It's just so much money, it's kind of spooking me, roared Lutz, clutching his guild card. Guild cards confirmed identities through blood, so only the owner of a card could use it. A very safe place to store your money. Don't worry, you won't have to see the money yourself if you store it all in the guild. I don't know how you're so calm about this, mine. Wish I had your guts. Putting aside how I had saved most of my money back in my Irano days, I had already gained and lost several small golds worth of money in this world, so I was used to dealing with large quantities of cash. I wanted to shout that I wasn't gutsy at all. I puffed my cheeks out pouting, and Benno laughed hard while paying us through our guild cards. I took 5 large coppers to give to my family and saved the rest. Lutz also splits his pay into savings and handed cash to give to his family. And hard cash to give to his family. Several days after that, Lutz went to get the storage building key and came back with a large bundle and a letter. Or to be more precise, it was a letter of invitation written on a board. The bundle contained ponchos with hoods. Lutz held up the differently colored ponchos and blinked in confusion, not recognizing what they were. I read the letter, which neatly and concisely described the meetup location and why we were being invited. It says we're going to go clothes shopping, so meet up in the Central Plaza at 4th Bell. Huh? Clothes? Benno says that there are people coming to his store who are angry about the paper we made, who wants to work things out with them, but in such a way that they don't learn that you and I exist. Our current clothes will stand out where we're going, so he wants us to continue wearing these. Huh? Wait, what? Is something dangerous happening here? We both tried the ponchos on. They were warm and hid most of our clothes, which was ideal. We could hide our faces and hair, too, with the hoods, so we would wear them when going outside. My hair stick would especially stand out. I'm not sure how dangerous it is yet, but since we're meeting Mark there, maybe we should finish up the trauma paper soon so we could sell it to him there. Oh, but if he's trying to keep us a secret, maybe we shouldn't walk around with it. What do you think? I said while checking how the trauma paper looked, and for some reason Lutz got mad. Why are you so calm, mine? I mean, I expected that there would be some conflict with the vested interest. That's what just happens when you introduce something new. They acted faster than I thought they would, but still. Wait, vested interest? What's that? Lutz blinked in utter confusion and repeated the phrase that didn't flow off his tongue very well. Vested interest refers to any organization or person who already have rights related to earning profit in a certain market or product. That's to say, they have a vested interest in the product or market. Remember what Benno said? Lowering the price would cause conflict with the vested interests. He's probably talking about the people who make parchment. What have they got to do with anything? We're making paper from wood, not animal skin. They seemed completely unrelated due to how they were made, but paper and parchment overlapped in usage and market. They were used in the same way and by the same customers. No other product had been competing with their parchment, and therefore threatening their profits, so I can imagine that they had fallen into complete panic over the appearance of a new kind of paper. Up until now, they were the only ones who could make paper, and people had no choice but to buy that paper to make contracts, right? They had control over the price, but now there's a new kind of paper, and their customers could move over to buying it instead. Lutz nodded, getting what I was driving at. If both products were used the same way, it just made sense that some customers would be drawn away. If that happens, they won't earn as much money, right? They don't want that. Not to mention prices tended to fall once there's a lot of something in the market. Huh? Really? I took out my stone slate and drew a graph. I started with 2 perpendicular straight lines for the x and y axis, then 2 simple curves representing supply and demand. This graph shows the relationship between supply and demand. This is the supply curve and this is the demand curve. Think of supply as products that exist and demand as the people who want those products. Right? When a lot of people want a product but there's not much of that product, the price of the product rises. I pointed at the leftmost part of the graph and Lutz understood my point, recognizing that things get more expensive when there wasn't much there. I nodded and traced my finger along the supply curve, so it follows that when more of the product enters the market, more of the people wanting the product will get it, which means demand will decrease. That lowers the price. Then I poked the point where the 2 curves make contact. Once there's more of a product than there are people wanting it, it'll stop selling no matter how many more you make and put on the market. That means its value will steadily drop, right? I moved my finger to the right and showed that the supply and demand curves had completely switched over, with demand now above supply. I understand. The more paper we make, the more its value will drop. The people making parchment don't want its value to drop. They want to keep their profits secure, so they're protesting Benno's new paper. Isn't this kind of bad? Said Lutz nervously. I smiled and shook my head. Benno's trying to hide us, which means that he'll take care of them himself. He's not something we have to worry about, though I can't say anything for sure until I hear the details. We finished 24 sheets of trauma paper before the meeting time described in the letter of invitation, but left them in the storage room for safety's sake. You should put your hood on too, so nobody can see your hair or face too well. Benno being this guarded meant that it was indeed possible we could get wrapped up in something dangerous. Better safe than sorry. Heck yeah. We waited in the central plaza somewhat anxiously, and after fourth bell, Mark finally came. Sorry to keep you waiting. Shall we go buy your apprentice clothes as promised? Yes, thank you. I didn't need apprentice clothes since I wasn't becoming one, but it would probably be smart to buy clothes that didn't stand out when I went to Benno's store. Or maybe it would be a waste of money. I started to debate internally over the best course of action when Mark suddenly picked me up. He must have interpreted my hesitation as a sign of poor health. Mr. Mark, I can walk on my own. I became uneasy due to your hesitation. Please allow me to do this for the sake of my own health. I was just thinking about something. I'm perfectly healthy right now. Yeah, you say that. Mark sped up his walking pace, smile not faltering for a moment. Feel free to think as much as you like, he said, solidifying that he had no intention of setting me down. Let's! This is faster, just suck it up for a bit. Les immediately shot down my cry for help, so having no other choice, I gave up and accepted my fate. Traitor! I love this. The three of us entered the clothes store and were greeted by the pleasant shopkeeper. Both of the workers and the customers here were wearing fine clothes. Les and I definitely would have been kicked out if we had come alone. Oh, hello there, Mark. Good to see you again, new apprentices. Yes, that's right. I would like to order Gilberta Company apprentice clothes for these two. Benno must have bought all his apprentice clothes here, as the shopkeeper nodded immediately at Mark's request. Wait, what? An apprentice outfit for me too? Les was becoming an apprentice, but I wasn't. Mark just nodded with his unfaltering smile. You will simply stand out too much wearing what you are now. My apologies, but we will be ordering clothes for you as well. It will be convenient for when you enter our store on business. I wasn't becoming an official apprentice, but I would be investing new products in the mine workshop and visiting Benno's store to discuss profit details and the like. So it was likely that I would be going there about as much as I had been for the past few seasons. It would just be sad if I went with Les with my patchwork hand-me-downs while he wore fancy new clothes. Maybe it would be a good idea to buy some new clothes now that I had spare money. Les was taken to the back of the store first and stripped down to his underwear for measurements. I was taken to another room where the same was done to me. It was exhausting to get measured all over. We requested advance payment of 1 small silver. After ordering a full set of apprentice clothes, jacket, shirt, pants, or a skirt, and even shoes, we tapped our guild cards against the storekeepers to pay 1 small silver. Benno had been right when he said that the final price would be around 10 small silver. That was the cost of one Gilberta Company's apprentice outfit. Given my ignorance of the world, I had no idea if that was expensive or cheap. No idea. After finishing our order, Mark brought us to Benno's store. Benno was glaring at a piece of paper with a somewhat grim expression on his face. But it softened after he saw us. Oh, there you are. My bad for being so sudden with all this. Things got bad faster than I thought they would. Maybe I went too fast, but either way, I'm on guard now. You two should stay on guard too. Keep your eyes open. There are people who will do anything to keep their power safe, and those people are everywhere. Benno was aware that he was potentially being overprotective, but when product rights and the power they granted got involved, no amount of caution was too much. We were kids too young to have been baptized, but if we were apprentice outfits, we wouldn't stick out in the store like we did before. When you mentioned the vested interests in the letter, were you talking about the people who made parchment? I asked. Yeah. Some members of the Parchment Guild sent an official complaint to the Merchants Guild. To the Merchants Guild? Really? I tilted my head, not knowing what connection the Parchment Guild had with the Merchants Guild. Benno explained that part of the Merchants Guild's job was to protect vested interests, minimize the friction caused by new products entering the market, and arbitrate between different guilds and parties. They sent a complaint to the Merchants Guild last evening, saying I started selling paper without joining their guild or paying them anything. According to a contact of mine, they asked the guild to get this law-breaking ruffian under control. So what'd you do? No way would Benno just sit quietly and let them order him around. He must have found a good compromise they could settle on before making his move. I urged Benno on, not feeling worried in the slightest. His lips curved into the confident grin of a successful carnivore. I gave a hard objection. My paper's made of plants, not animal skin. So the Parchment Guild's got nothing to do with it. Basically, I told him to back off. I felt the blood drain from my face at Benno's bloodthirsty attitude. He hadn't found a compromise or anything. He was just picking a fight with the vested interests head on. If things got violent, it would be all Benno's fault. So, like, you didn't think of a compromise or something? Idiot. They just looked down on me if I tried to compromise. The fact of the matter is, I didn't steal any of their manufacturing secrets, and I don't owe them anything for their manufacturing fee. Plant paper and animal paper aren't made of the same thing, and they aren't the same thing. One's not derived from the other. They're just trying to monopolize the paper market for themselves, and if possible, suck up the profit my new product is going to make. This was just how Benno operated, and it wasn't my place to complain about how he ran his business, but I wished he could have handled things a little more peacefully. Parchment is made from animal skin, so I don't think they'd be able to increase production no matter what they do. What if you work with the Merchants Guild and agree with official contract paper will always be made from parchment so that you can guarantee that at least some of their profit will be preserved. You're as soft as ever, Benno snorted. I thought that the Parchment Guild would be more cooperative if we guaranteed some of their profit and parchment's relevance in the future. But Benno apparently didn't think that was a good idea. I just don't like unnecessary fighting. Plus, I really just want paper to spread throughout the world and be used for all sorts of things. Contract paper isn't my end goal. I want it to be used for books, memo pads, painting, origami. I want paper to be something even kids can use without worrying about the price. That's a bigger dream than I expected, murmured Benno, eyes opened a little wide in surprise and exasperation. Is it really that big of a dream? I think it'll happen no matter once paper gets mass-produced. So really, the best thing to do here might be to go ahead and make Voron paper a lot cheaper than parchment whilst using it for everything but contracts. For example, those written reports on your desk. They'd be easier to carry with plant paper and easier to store. They'd be easier to write on than wood boards, too. I see, using different paper for different purposes. I'll have to think about it. This time Benno's eyes narrowed and thought he didn't say I was being soft. Something I had said must have tickled both the profit-seeking part of his brain and his heartstrings. If we use different paper for different things, then you can treat trauma paper as specialty paper for high-class purposes. It's better than parchment even, right? Yeah, I've been planning to make trauma paper a lot more expensive than parchment. Wait, come again? A lot more? I blinked in surprise and made Barrow narrow his eyes a lot more and looked between Luz and me. Don't tell me you two haven't realized it. Huh? Realized what? Lutz, what's special about trauma wood? Asked Benno. Lutz bounced a little in his chair in surprise at the unexpected question, then began to list off his answers. Trauma wood grows super fast and it's hard to burn. Oh, I get it. Is trauma paper hard to burn too? Speaking of which, Dad had said that furniture made from trauma wood was so hard to burn that it sometimes survived fires. Young and soft wood couldn't be made into furniture, but it could be made into paper. That's right. Compared to normal paper, it's extremely hard to burn. That's not to say it can't burn at all, but it's exactly the kind of paper nobles will want for recording classified government information and preserving official documents. I'd be stupid not to give it a high price. It certainly was a special kind of paper deserving a higher price. Even back on Earth, different kinds of paper had different prices. Unique or otherwise difficult to make paper was always fairly expensive. Okay, I understand now, so how much will each sheet of trauma paper be? For a contract-sized sheet, 5 large silver. What? The price was so overwhelming that I actually felt a little headache come on. Les was so shocked he couldn't speak. Meanwhile, Benno just flatly repeated that it's rare paper made from materials that could not be consistently obtained. The price was obvious to him. Apparently, he couldn't put it on the market until he had built up a large enough stock of it. With that out of the way, don't come to the store again until this business with the Parchment Guild is finished. There's a reason I want to keep you two hidden. If the method for making plant paper leaks out and others start selling it, people would die. Wait, what? People could die? I blinked in surprise at the sudden escalation, and Benno brought up the magic contract I had completely forgotten about. Our magic contract states that you will decide who makes the paper and Let's will sell it. If someone starts making and selling the paper without knowing about that contract, anything could happen. Contract magic, is that dangerous? It involves people who haven't had anything to do with the contract too? I held my hand, stunned by this unexpected development. I had never thought for a moment that this magic contract I had made to secure our employment could end up being so dangerous. Contract magic exists to keep nobles under control. Whether you know about the contract or not, breaking it will give you some kind of punishment. I'm going to hide your identities and tell the Merchants Guild that I have a magic contract stating Only I can make and sell this plant paper. That should shut the Parchment Guild up. The contract might have brought us more danger than safety. Since only I had the right to decide who makes paper, and only us had the right to sell it, that paper to the first customer, we were actually in a pretty risky position. I want to hide that you two have rights to the paper. You can keep the key to the storage building for a bit, so don't come back here. I'll contact you through Otto once the dust is settled. Les and I both nodded as assured by Bando's confidence. I just hope that the contract magic I asked for doesn't kill anybody. Okay. I'm going to have to end this part off here, and I'll see y'all next time.